I love tools. I'm a tool collector. If you were to come to my house and you were going to my little shop area at the house, you would realize, man, Jason does love lots of tools, whether it's people have been given to me or it's during Christmas or different times. But one of my favorite tools I have in my garage and I use often is the air compressor. And if you don't know much about an air compressor, most of them they're pretty small. The nickname for them is often called the pancake compressor, which they're just little, and they usually have about 150 PSI, which is pressure per square inch, and they run pneumatic tools. They're just useful for so many different things. And most people in their trade and in their jobs, they couldn't think living without it. Certain professions, they fully depend on it. But there's something about air compressors that you need to remember is that when you're done with it and it's reached its full compression or the compression you've set it to, you got to make sure when you turn it off that you decompress it. You've got to let out the release valve so that pressure would dissipate. And because the worst thing you could do is to leave that pressure built up for a period of time, because over the hours or days or weeks, what you're going to find is that it's fully destroyed. That pressure is going to find its way out one way or the other. And, that's much like our life, especially in the area of grief. It's true that you and I, the longer that we live, we are going to experience grief. There's really no way around it. Life is filled with lots of different emotions and lots of wonderful experiences, but also heartbreaking and sad experiences. And, grief is one of them. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of a career. It could be maybe broken relationships in your family or friendships. We grieve over those things. It could be so many areas of grief, has so many different layers. And one of the things that we've got to know and to remember about grief is that it's not healthy, to allow that pressure, those feelings, those emotions to build up and to bottle up and never decompress, never release that valve switch per se, and we need to be able to talk about these things. We need to definitely be able to pray. We need to find community, because we see Jesus talk about this often. And, in the shortest verse in the English Bible, John 11, verse 35 says what? You could say it with me. Jesus wept. He wept. And it's a powerful verse because it shows the humanity of Jesus and shows that here he is weeping and grieving over the death of probably one of his best friends, Lazarus. And he's also very, very good friends with Mary and Martha, probably since childhood. And here he is showing up, and we know the miracle of the resurrection would come here very soon in a few verses. But in this moment, we know that he's showing his grief. He understands the feelings of loss. He understands that grief is something that each and every person has to work through at different parts of their life. And so I would really just encourage you in a few ways. If you're experiencing grief, or if you find yourself in a season of grief, or maybe it's something you haven't really fully dealt with that happened 5, 10, 15 years ago in your life, I'd say number one, find community. Personally for Shannon and I and our family, just the last 4 years, we've experienced lots of different levels of grief in our own lives. And we haven't, and sometimes you just feel like you're just taking a lot of different punches and you're just ready for the knockout. And you don't really know how you feel, and you feel numb by life and some of the things that can come your way. But I would say, number one, if you're experiencing grief, find community. Don't go at it alone. Don't allow those emotions and your feelings and your thoughts and your questions to get under pressure and bottled up and never dealt with. The second thing is, don't only find community, but it's good to listen during community, but we need to talk. Maybe you don't feel like you're much of a talker. Maybe you feel you're more of an introvert or an extrovert, but I would say find someone in a group or an individual that you can talk to and allow your feelings and allow those emotions and your questions to be said. It's just something powerful when we can say it. It's basically releasing the release valve on a air compressor where the pressure, the emotions, the things that we've bottled up for so long can find its way out and the healing can start. So I would hope you would consider not only finding community, but take advantage of those relationships that God's given us. And then last, I would just say, remember. Oftentimes, what does Jesus say to his disciples? Remember me. Remember me. You see, when we remember and can reminisce on memories with our loved ones that are now lost or in some other area of grief of our life, it's a wonderful thing to remember. It's a wonderful thing to reminisce, maybe by yourself, but especially with other family or friends or coworkers or whatever it may be. I would encourage you to do that as part of the healing process. And we have a great ministry here at Get Well Church that offers that. And it's called Grief Share. They meet every week. And if you would love to know more about what Grief Share is and find your community where you can have a healthy outlet with biblical principles, finding how God wants us to deal with this area of our life, you ought to go to Grief Share at getwellchurch.org. Grief Share at getwellchurch.org. Get you connected on that weekly basis group. And so Psalm 34:18, I'll close on this, has meant so much to me, especially over the last few years of our life, is that it says this: the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. He's close to you. If you're brokenhearted today, if you find yourself in a season of doubt and maybe even depression or time when you really just don't have the answers through grief, know that God is close to you. He is the ultimate relationship that we need to focus on. And so today, I hope that these tips can help you, and these discussion questions will allow you to have some conversation around this area of grief.